I don't think we have any public comments, Mary.
No, we don't.
And I think since we don't have another trustee here, I don't, I approve the minutes, but I guess that would have to.
Yeah, we can't approve the minutes, so we'll wait on that.
What's another year?
Yeah, what's another year? What the heck?
And so today we have an information meeting on the management and programming agreement with Southern California Public Radio. And I did read the agreement. And so probably the president has more to say on this than the lawyer.
Actually, I think Alex is going to set the table for us, as we say, and then hand it off to Melody.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. We are here to talk about the successor agreement between us and KPCC. This is the document that governs our relationship with the broadcaster. And as you know, our existing agreement is up for renewal. We have Melody Virtue on the line here today to help talk us through the agreement. We've been talking with SoCal Public Radio for quite some time about how to bring this thing across the finish line. And we want to do all we can to bring that to a close next week. So we're here to take a look at it and then bring it to the full board next week. Melody, would you mind just doing a quick overview of what we're looking at and what we have to talk about here today? Oh, you're muted. There we go. I think we're getting you unmuted.
Okay.
Awesome.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, thank you.
Okay,
I can bring the agreement up too if you want to share screen, if you want to look at it.
If you think it's necessary at any particular place, if someone has a question, that would be good. But otherwise, I just thought I would give a broad summary of how we got where we are now.
Perfect.
This all predated my work on this particular agreement. I'm not sure anyone still is around when this agreement was initially entered, but it's been in existence in some form or another since 1999.
Yep.
And so even though the old version is supposed to go to the end of, almost the end of this decade, there have been a number of FCC changes in case law. And most of this FCC policy relating to third-party programming agreements such as this relate to case law and policy of the FCC. And it stems in this broad provision in the Communications Act that the FCC has to approve any transfer of control. So what we want to avoid is any transfer of control, because otherwise the FCC has to approve it. FCC decides these things on a case-by-case basis. They look at programming, finances, and personnel, and in looking at those things in case law where issues have come up, they made a determination as to whether there's been a premature transfer of control or one for which consent should have been sought. So these programming agreements are popular. They've become more and more popular. They were really introduced in a commercial form in the mid-90s during one of those recessions way back when. And, the FCC was sold on the idea because how is this any different than like a network affiliation agreement? And they had a hard time saying that that was a problem. So they kind of put in all these different safeguards in place to make sure that the licensee maintains control. And as the college has to be in control as the licensee. But as time went by, we got more and more information from the FCC in what they expected of its non-commercial licensees in handling these agreements, because they were very different than what was happening on the commercial side. Because on the commercial side, basically the programmer, sometimes called a time broker, would buy all the time on the station and pay the licensee a monthly fee and pay all the expenses. The non-commercial stations are not allowed to receive, they cannot sell their time. That's the rule. They cannot sell their time. So everything that we've had to change in this agreement were things that became clearer as a result of cases that were decided over the years. And this is designed, these changes are designed to bring it up to date and to extend the term. Because otherwise it wouldn't expire until 2029. But the parties have been trying to fix this thing, I think since, at least so far as I know, since 2012. So it's been a while to get it whipped into shape. And as that time goes by, FCC staff has retired and new staff have different views on how this should operate or whether they think these are okay. So we're trying to make changes that will address the things that we know about and to make it defensible in case of any complaint. Now, it's very unlikely the FCC would ever rule on this because it's not like we're going to ask them for approval of this agreement unless someone were to complain. We will need to keep it in the station's online public file, so it will be available there. But the FCC doesn't, at this point in time, they don't go out and hunt for these things on station public files. That's not to say they might not do that in the future, but we don't have to cross that bridge unless the station is sold. And if it's sold to Southern California Public Radio, then this agreement would be part of that filing. And at that point, we would need to potentially defend it. We don't know what the staff will be like then, or maybe they'll be more comfortable with these agreements. Then the new staffers will be more comfortable than the old staffers were. So we're kind of dealing with some shifting ground with these things. But the main things that we changed were to address FCC rule changes. And that was anything that, and unfortunately for the college, it meant things that made money for the college off the station. So now it just makes sure that you do get reimbursed for your expenses. And it makes sure that you have, you continue to have internship programs. You continue to have, there were some other soft benefits, the branding, the things that you'd be entitled to, like the station, top of the hour station ID. And you get 2 spots a week that are kind of generic college related announcements that aren't selling anything specifically for the college writ large, because when you have institutional licensees do other things besides radio or broadcast station, the station cannot be used as a fundraising tool for the larger institution. Mm-hmm. So we had to excise those elements from this agreement that did things like that. Anything that would, I think there was at one point in time, there was a payment of rent for studios. And I think the rent was rather a good income source for the university. And there, I think at one time, one of the provisions in the old agreement was, what happens if you sold the station to somebody else? There would be an upside that, or if there would be an upside for the university in that case too. So those things have been taken out. Things that also changed that sort of help Southern California Public Radio have to do with the fact the FCC changed its rules so that stations are no longer required in the rules to have a main studio. FCC decided in trying to update its rules that, like stations can decide where they put their main studios. They don't need to say it has to be within a certain radius of the transmitter site or the community of license. And they've also, in case law, removed this is again one of those shifting sands issue, but on the commercial side, they removed the requirement that a main studio, or even the non-commercial, that a main studio has to have at least 2 full-time or full-time equivalent employees, one of which has to be a manager. They got rid of that. Now, the staff has informally told us when they look at these things that they still want someone designated by the licensee to be there and exercise oversight. But now we don't have this, this firm, you got to have 2 full-time employees. So that meant that we can decide our own staffing, and the agreement covers the reimbursement by Southern California Public Radio of that designated employee to be the manager. So that was changed. The way Southern California Public Radio lost in these changes, if you want to kind of see who's winning and losing, is that the agreement previously kind of gave them free rein in fundraising for themselves. So we had to make it very clear that any fundraising they do on KPCC has to be for the benefit of the station. So just like the university writ large cannot enjoy the fundraising on the station itself, neither can Southern California Public Radio. So any money they raise using KPCC has to be plowed back into the programming on the station.
So
That's not to say they can't use it on their other stations as well, but it has to be specifically for the use of KPCC.
So if that's the case, like, can you give me an example of what they wouldn't be allowed to spend money on? Like what doesn't count as something for KPCC being spent by Southern California Public Radio?
Well, let's say they were doing, using funds raised on KPCC to buy another station for Southern California Public
Ah,
Radio.
okay. So
So
that's
they
like,
can do that.
okay. So that would be creating an asset for them.
Right.
They can't do that.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
So it kind of ties both parties' hands so that the bedrock rule and the thing that has to be our talisman in all of this is that you can only use the station to fundraise for the station.
Mhm.
Any pledge, pledge drives, things like that have to be for the station.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the other things that we tinkered with, they had a very, to this day, I really don't understand it. It had this very complex, what happens in the event of a sale of a station?
Yeah,
There's
the
this
poison
complicated
pill.
formula, and I'm like, what does this mean? So we changed that so that if there had been if there's a sale of the station, then they would get the equivalent of a year's revenue as kind of their cost to terminate and to wind down. And we put in more protections for the licensee in the event that there's a termination, so that you have at least 12 months to lease equipment from them that they're using for the station, and their programming and stuff would be made available to the university to help with the transition. At this point in time, no one says, oh, we want to terminate. Everyone's looking for the long-term goal. And the big, probably the largest consternation was the desire to make this agreement go on forever. And one of the things that the FCC will not allow is the station, that this cannot go on forever. So, it puts me in a position of basically negotiating against what my client wants. But that's common in these time brokerage agreements, because I'm just trying to hoe the row that the FCC has set for us in other agreements that we know about, and the things that they found problematic. So like a 99-year lease is not a good thing. This one, I think, pushes the envelope a little bit, but we know that the FCC has approved, in the context of non-commercial programming agreements, that 10 years plus one year renewals are okay. Ours is with a 10-year renewal with some, I was rereading it this morning with some, because this is a 10-year renewal, but it could be interpreted as another 10-year renewal after that. I don't know if that was deliberate among the people who had their hands on negotiating this, to give them the option to, but you have an out, you have a hard out in the 8th year term to say, we're done.
Yeah.
We're done. So,
well, I wasn't comfortable with anything more than 10-year chunks, because even that, in my opinion, is pushing up against the contracting code that we usually follow here in California, with 5-year maximums. And believe me, at least 1.5 of the last 3.5 years has been spent debating that and saying, no, this is what it's really about, So, so I feel like the language that's there with the 10 plus possibility of 10 is, I can live with it.
You're like looking over the edge.
Yeah, I'm on the edge, and I can live with it. Even with all the assurances, I'm not selling this, we're not selling it, but anyway, so that's why I could get there.
And, I certainly appreciate the feelings on both sides of this issue, because, Southern California Public Radio has really made the station something. They put a lot of effort and investment in it, and made it what it, it's a nationally known station and well regarded and has a big reputation, and that's really due to their efforts. And I can understand that they don't want to waste their investment and don't want to risk their investment, but we still have to, and they know, they have FCC counsel too.
Yeah.
They know what we're up against. And so, they're like every client on their side, I'm sure as well, and other clients who do these, people always want to push as much as they can.
Well,
and it's really just a risk assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always a possibility if the FCC saw this, that they would make you amend it. But, so long as you make sure that you follow all the requirements, to keep an eye on them, make sure you get the reports, exercise the oversight that you're supposed to, and document when you're doing that, then I think that it's defensible and you'll be fine.
Yeah, and we'll have to schedule probably in July or August, we'll want them to come and give their annual report, because I don't think they've been in the last year, or they were, but I think it's time.
Yeah.
So did I miss anything, Alex?
No, that was very thorough. Thank you, Melody. And I think it's Dr. Fellow, we're prepared to bring this next Wednesday for approval by the full board so we can execute it and put it together. I don't know if you have any questions. It seems like you gave it some thought before the meeting started.
I just, I approve of the agreement. I looked at that, and I think they've been very good stewards of the license that they have, and they've treated PCC well as far as internship. A lot of our students have gotten full-time jobs, and I think most of the directors, trustees always were interested in how much time we get as for commercial purposes to boast about PCC on KPCC. But I think it's a good agreement.
It's 15 seconds twice a week.
Yeah.
One in morning drive, one in afternoon drive.
Yeah, and as you said, you said it correctly, is that they made something of this station. It's really
it's a
national
powerhouse.
treasure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm proud that it's part of us.
Yeah, I mean, it really helps with your own branding. I mean, to have your name associated with it is something special.
Yeah.
So, and you get that every hour at the top of the hour.
And it's interesting because there is just significant name recognition, even if we're not directly doing it. It's like, wow, KPCC, you have your own radio station.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, that's worth a lot, considering what would you be able to do with it if you had to program it yourself?
Yeah, well, we used to, and
right.
that's a huge undertaking.
It is a huge undertaking. But
so I think this is the best of both worlds. Our students get internships. It's a total win-win for us. It is a huge asset that we have, and it's a win-win.
Yeah.
And if you're listening, Herb, we are not planning to sell the license. Every time I see him, it's like the first thing I do, I go up and say, Herb, we are not trying to sell the license.
Everybody turn towards Raymond Avenue and say, we're not planning on
we are not selling the license.
Yeah, well, and then there's a lot of paranoia in the industry, particularly institutional licensees, because many of them are looking to that because the stations are a drain on them because they don't have a good, strong programmer,
right?
Or, some kind of way to really build the program, and it becomes a drain. And then the universities are like, well, what's our core mission, and where can we get money? And
yeah. Can I ask you one thing? I've been to the Raymond Street a number of times on journalism conferences and events, and they do and receptions. Can PCC use, like if the president wanted to do a reception there for special people, do we have a right to use the property or not?
We don't have a right to use the property, a right per se, but I think if I contacted Herb and said, hey, we're thinking about doing this, I think he would be absolutely open to it because, it's a very impressive facility.
Yeah.
And I think he would be interested in people seeing how impressive it is. Because you don't think to yourself, hey, I think I'm going to go down to that KPCC station and check that sucker out. So I think it would be very easy.
Okay.
I mean, you don't have a contractual right built in for that, but to the extent they partner with other groups to do similar things, there's no reason why they could not do that with you. It's just you can't demand it. Okay. Not of their facility. You could do it in your own campus studios, but
Yeah.
but I'm sure that's not the impressive facility you're talking about.
No, but no, I'm fine with everything. I think we could bring it to the board.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Well, we're prepared to
wonderful.
bring it as an action item next Wednesday, and we'll have Melody on hand to answer questions, but we don't plan a full presentation there. We'll just bring it up as an action item.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
think
I was gonna say, Alex, let me know if there's anything you want me to do, or I just can be there for
Yeah, that'll be great.
Q&A if people have questions.
And Melody, just thank you for sticking with us.
Yes.
I have no
I'm not
idea.
kidding.
I am opening a bottle of champagne or fizzy something.
Melody. Melody, can I ask you, what firm are you with? Because I do.
Foster Garvey, previously Garvey Schubert Bear, and before that, when still Haley Bader Potts.
Okay.
So I am the last remaining attorney of the communications group that was a boutique of Haley Bader Potts. And my assistant is still with me through all these years. But yeah, I've gone through a lot of retirements, and I've inherited projects like this from my retired partners that they didn't finish before they left. And I cannot wait to rub John Kriegler's nose in it.
Exactly. I brought it home.
I know. He used to laugh, and Mitzi used to work for Minnesota Public Radio, and they would meet out in California to negotiate this thing, like in, the 2012 or 2013. And he just thought it was so funny that he was giving her a very hard time in negotiating this thing, but she still had to pay his bill.
Yeah.
He loved that no end.
That is
I can't
hilarious.
wait. I can't wait for you all to sign it. So I
Yeah,
hope I
me
don't
too.
jinx it by saying that.
Okay, fine. Well, thank
Wanted
you.
to be done.
And I think you should be there just for questions, because some of them might have things to say, but thank you.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's great.
And well, I will. I have it on my calendar for 8 next Wednesday night Eastern time, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
We're
actually, I would say more like I'd say 9 Eastern time, because
Okay.
we're not going to go back into the general session until at least 5:30, and we've got a presentation and a few things. So
9 o'clock.
yeah.
All
The
right,
other
I'll
thing
come
is
in
that
on
it's possible that once the board agenda comes out on Friday afternoon, that one or some of the trustees will ask a question about, if I get a question ahead of time, then
Mhm.
we'll know how imperative it is that you be on call.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to assume right now to come on at 9,
Okay.
unless I'm told otherwise.
Okay. That sounds good.
I can be in touch with you, Melody, to make sure we're
Okay.
coordinating.
All right. Or if something comes up, that's a rare instance that I'll like a text.
Okay.
Melody, where are you?
I'm in Virginia,
Oh, that's nice.
just across the river from DC. So I'm having a watch party tonight with some of my neighbors,
Oh,
and I'm hosting tonight. So
okay.
I have recording too. So if I need to record it, I can do that.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you.
All right. Great. Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much.
Thank you. Thanks,
Okay, I
Melody.
guess that's it for business. Bobby, I wanted to talk to you for a minute on the phone or something. Bobby,
Oh, so you want to have a conversation with her after?
I can even do it here if she wants, because it's nothing. Even if
Well,
you want to stay.
unless it pertains to the committee, I think you two should have the conversation
Okay.
separately.
You want me to call you, Tony?
Yeah, you have my number?
I think so. Let me look real quick.
We are streaming and recording. Keep in mind.
Yes, yeah. So
Cell phone 773.
wait a minute. Can you how about if you text it?
Okay.
Is that the beginning of the number?
Yeah,
Okay.
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 Good.
yeah.
Right.
Okay.
We don't want to put that into the public realm.
Oh, come on.
Now we have so many people friends out there. Okay. Thank you.
All
I'll see
right,
you.
wonderful. Thank
Good
you.
meeting.
Thanks, everyone.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye.